Hi, Myers-Barnes. Topic, objections. I want to cover this because I was in Washington, D.C. on Friday and was actually asked at random, what did I think about objections? So I'm not going to give you technique for objections. I'm going to give you a little bit of theory because it really prompted me to come back to the office and want to record this video on objections just for you. You know, here's the big thing about objections as I was explaining to the audience on Friday. Watch this. No objection, no sale. What do you mean, no objection, no sale? I fear objection. No, you don't fear objections. You welcome objections. You see, an objection is nothing more than a question. You have to reframe that. Most people think an objection is a reason for not going forward, and the truth of the matter is an objection is nothing more than a question that the prospect has. It says, if you can justify this to me, it's coming at you disguised is a reason for me not going forward. But what I'm really asking is, can you justify this for me? If you can justify this for me, you're going to win the sale. Well, what do you mean? Well, a buyer looks at you and says, I could get this home for $20,000 less. Here's the truth of the matter. If they could get it for $20,000 less, they would have bought it. You think about that. If they could have gotten it for $20,000 less, they wouldn't even be standing in front of you. What they're coming back and doing is saying, I'm going to give you a second chance now. You justify to me why I should pay you $20,000 more. So do you see this? Watch this. An objection is not your enemy. An objection is your friend. It gives you a second chance to go back in. Now, real thing about objections. All of them are predictable. What do you mean they're predictable? They're as predictable as the sun rising in the east and setting in the west. The objections are pretty clear today. What's a buyer going to tell you? Well, I need to go home and think about it. That's a whopper. You should be surprised by something like that. That's a very predictable objection. Well, what else are they going to tell you? I have to sell my home first. Predictable objection. You know, all objections are going to come at you from predictable angles. Brian Tracy says there's a law of six. What's the law of six? There's really only basically six objections. There's only going to be basically six objections to what you're representing. Now, they could be centering around finance, maybe it's a location, maybe it's a school district, maybe it's a floor plan issue. But even when a buyer says, I don't like your floor plans, what they're really saying is, do you have something else you can show me? If a buyer says, I don't like your location, what they're saying is this, you better spend a little more time why I want to move my family here. But you see, every objection is nothing more than a question. But you figure out what your six objections are, and you come up with planned responses. Because here's the thing. Predictable objections deserve a predictable response, and that's how you overcome the predictable objections. Last point with objections, there's really only two. Well, you just said there were six. Well, there's two that we have to deal with. Here's the two. The first objection is the objection the prospect gives you, and believe me, they've got lots of them. They can come at you and they can ask you lots of questions and throw what seems like roadblocks in the way, but you have to be able to overcome their objection. Well, how do you overcome a prospect's objection? You overcome a prospect's objection with a planned technique. You overcome a prospect's objection with a planned dialogue. You think it through. You say, these are the predictable objections, and I'm going to overcome it. Easy to overcome the prospect's objections. Well, then what's the second objection? The second objection is yours. And I'm telling you, yours is more deadly than the prospect's. Well, what do you mean? If you have an objection and the prospect has the same objection, you can't overcome it. I'll give you an example. If you say, you know, my neighborhood is too expensive, and the prospect comes in and says, I think your neighborhood is too expensive, how can you overcome that objection? Impossible. You can't overcome an objection if you share it with the prospect. So what you have to do is ask yourself this question. Are my objections, before you come up with the law of six, is the objection mine? Or is it the prospect's? If it's yours, you fix it by attitude. If it's theirs, you fix it by technique. All right, let's summarize. No objection, no sale. Why? Because it's not an objection. It's a request for more information. It's a question. All objections are predictable. All you have to do is look at the six big objections and make sure you're not sharing the same objection as the prospect. You overcome that one with your attitude. Thanks so much. I look forward to talking to you again in the future. This is Myers-Barnes.